Welcome back, everybody, to the SoundQ Garage podcast. This is officially season 2, episode 1, and we are kicking it off today. The show where the only thing deeper than the bass is the rabbit hole we fall into. I'm your host today, Eddie. Buckle up because we are talking subwoofers, data, and subwoofer obsession at a level only true audio nerds could love. Today's guest has become one of the most disruptive voices in car audio. He's the guy who spent more on Klippel testing than most people spend on their cars and then published all the data, even when it hurt some feelings and some sales. Founder of ResoNix, Nick Apicella.
Hey, how are you doing, Ed?
What's up, Nick? I hope I pronounced your name right, buddy. Is it Apicella?
Technically correct. But we kind of butchered it in the U.S. after our family moved from Italy, and we now say Apicella, but technically it is Apicella.
Oh, okay. See, so yeah. I was like, is this Nick Alpaca, Apicella, Apicella? You know, yeah. With the double L, you know, because I come from a Latin background. I was like, that's got to be Apicella. What's your background? Is it Italian or?
Italian, yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. So before we get into the new subwoofer, Nick, which we're really going to get into. So calm down, guys. I want to paint a picture for the listeners. Nick is the guy who personally spent, is it true you spent 20 grand? Let me repeat that.
Yes.
20 grand?
Yeah.
On independent Klippel testing?
Yeah. I mean, between the testing itself and the shipping of everything, yes, it's over 20 grand at this point. My UPS bill is an absolute disaster.
So you're on a first name basis with the UPS guy?
Yeah, our UPS guy hates us. Well, that's also because our warehouse is we're all shipping heavy products. So yeah, our UPS guy hates us.
He's probably got back problems.
Yeah, well, that's it is what it is. We got to get stuff out to our customers.
So Nick, before we jump into the sub, give people a backstory. What made you decide the industry needed another subwoofer with all the subwoofers that are out there? What made you decide that?
Yeah, there's so many subwoofers out there, and it's such a simple product. You would think that there are so many options, and there kind of are on paper until you start doing a deep dive into higher end stuff, genuine quality products and, very niche products. Like, all the guys that are going to be listening to this are not just your average basic car audio enthusiast. We're all pretty deep in this, relatively speaking. So anyone in that demographic and then some, if you start to look for high performance subwoofers and you start looking beyond the basic marketing specs, and you also look at specific applications such as, for the case of the ResoNix Gus subwoofer line, super small sealed enclosures, you will realize there are options for them, but none of them are really that good, frankly. I'm pretty fortunate I've had my hands on pretty much every subwoofer that you can think of. Tuned them, installed them, listened to them, you name it. I've probably used it. And, after, I was using Illusion Audio for a while, and then they closed, Orca closed the Illusion Audio side of things. Orca's the owner of Illusion Audio because they were having manufacturer problems with the factory in India. They are eventually, I don't know if they're going to do anything with that, but yeah, Illusion Audio stopped producing subwoofers, and I was like, okay, crap. Those were kind of my favorite line of subs between the C12, the shallow one, and the C12 XL, which was their standard one. And then I remembered from back in the day, I was using Audio Mobile a lot, and very high performance subwoofers on paper. They do exactly what I need, what I typically like. Out of installs, small sealed enclosure capability with low extension and low distortion, and then they have been having massive supply issues, and there's a lot of it's not my place to really say, but there's just stuff going on in the background where go try to find an Audio Mobile subwoofer for sale right now. You can't.
Yeah, it's next to impossible, pretty much.
And frankly, I was actually, you know what? I'll just say it. I was offered to purchase the company at one point, and I actually got excited about. I was like, oh shit, like that could be a really cool business opportunity for me. And as time went on, it was pretty obvious that like, oh, that is not a real thing. Like there's so many problems on the back end over there that like I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, every time I have needed something, like a certain product that isn't offered on the market anymore or at all, I create it. Just like our ResoNix was founded by the fact that Sound Deadener Showdown closed. Them closing prompted me to have a need for higher quality sound deadening materials because it was no longer available. You know, they closed. I tried all these different other sound deadening companies, was not impressed with it. Said, screw it, I'm going to create my own stuff. That's where ResoNix CLD came from. You know, that's where this entire company was born from. And it's the same thing with this subwoofer where I'm looking around. I'm like, there's so many options for subwoofers, but none of them are genuinely good. You know, I know that's a really long answer, but I don't know. I'm just providing as much background as I can. So I said, screw it. I'm just gonna do what I always do, and I'm gonna make my own. That's it.
No, that's a good answer because it's basically business 101. See a need, fill a need.
Yeah,
So I know, what do they say? Hoffman's law is like
Hoffman's Iron Law.
Hoffman's iron law, isn't it? Like I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's
It
three
is.
things.
It is. It's low extension,
Yep.
small enclosure, high sensitivity. Pick two.
Pick two. Yep.
But thankfully, in today's world, power is cheap. You know, sensitivity is not nearly as much of a concern. And from what I learned through this entire process, sensitivity of a subwoofer is not, it doesn't behave the same as you would think it would. Like sensitivity is obviously still a spec based on, you know, calculation of Gill small parameters, but there's more to it than just a simple sensitivity spec. But yeah, I mean, in 2025, going on 2026, we have so many amplifiers that are the size of your palm that put out, you know, 1,000 watts. You know, you have so many amplifiers that are $400 amplifier that puts out 2,000 watt power is not a problem these days. So I'm like, yeah, you know, let's go with small enclosure and low frequency extension because those are important to most people. You know, how
Yeah.
many people can fit 1.5 to 2 cubic foot sealed enclosure for a single 12-inch? And, you know, no one can really do that these days. These cars are tiny. They don't give us much to work with.
Yeah, true. A lot of people want to keep their, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people want to keep their trunk space too. So,
Yeah. I mean, not
it's
everybody needs to keep their trunk space, but I think it would be safe to say most people would like to if it's an option.
yeah. Not everybody's
You
willing to
know?
give up that trunk space. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of us are, some of us are hardcore
Yeah.
enthusiasts, but then you have the other people, so,
Well, now those people that, you know, are okay with taking up their trunk space, well, now they can have their cake and eat it too.
nice.
You know, you
So,
can have that same low frequency extension while, you know, having your trunk back and being a normal person.
so speaking of specs, like we were talking about a minute ago, a lot of the stuff that's published online, a lot of these manufacturers, they tell a lot of tall tales. They fib on the specs. Why do you think that is? Because how is a consumer supposed to make an informed decision if they're looking at specs, they're looking at, frequency response charts, and a lot of people obsess over that. And then when they get that, those components in their hands, they get that subwoofer in their car and it doesn't perform to what the company claimed. Like you know, what is up with companies doing that? Like, now that you're in the thick of it, so to speak, like I know it's a lot of,
Oh, no,
marketing.
it's yeah, I mean, it's the what's up with it, the simple answer is because they can get away with it, you
Yeah.
know? Who's actually gonna buy one of those subwoofers, send it off for Klippel testing, and, you know, call them out at such a high level until I came along. You know, there's just yeah, there's a lot of things I learned from this large scale batch of Klippel testing that we're doing, and the one big thing I learned is that almost every single one of these companies is full of shit, frankly. Like, you know, open honesty, like not trying to sugarcoat things, not trying to make it even more extreme than it is, but these companies mostly are full of shit. And it's one of the perfect examples of this that you can see, and how easy it is for them to get away with is there's one specific subwoofer. I'm not going to name it yet until the results are out. But someone pointed me to a discussion on the DIY mobile audio forums. And, they're discussing, oh, like, should I go with this subwoofer or should I go with this subwoofer? It turns out those two subwoofers are designed, apparently, knowing this on the back end, are apparently designed by the same person. They're similar in depth. They have very, very similar specifications. They're just from two different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I tested one of them. The other one I'm trying to get my hands on without paying full retail. And I want to test it just to see how similar they really are. But the one of them that was tested did about 1/3 of the manufacturer stated Xmax.
Wow.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have all of these people in this discussion. Oh my God, like this subwoofer is crazy. Look how shallow it is. And it does this much excursion. It's like, yeah, just because it has the mechanical throw to do it doesn't mean it's not doing it without a boatload of distortion,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So I mean, the short answer again, it's just they do it because they can get away with it. 99.9% of their customers don't care. The other 0.1% of the customers that do care aren't even going to be able to call it out because they have no way of actually figuring this out. Some companies might state Xmax based off of, a 70% BL, 70% BL Klippel measurement. Some of them might base it on, the formula that takes the voice coil height and magnetic gap into account without doing any measurements. I don't know where these companies are really coming up with these specs, specifically Xmax, but I can tell you this, out of all of the subwoofers that we tested, which is about 40, only a few of them actually met the manufacturer stated claims.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
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 That's crazy.
It's very crazy. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say about it. Like, I really did think that a lot of these drivers would do much better. And like some of them, I was like, okay, like, so I went into the designing of this subwoofer, and I'm working with a friend in the company that he works for on this, and I approached them. We were going to do something a couple of years ago. Nothing really came out of it. Life got busy for me. And then I reapproached it and I said, look, I want to do a subwoofer, again, small sealed, high excursion, low distortion, blah, blah, blah. I need it to be the highest performing sub on the market for this specific application. No questions about it. I will only release it until we can prove it's the best. And they said, okay. I'm like, I'm going to send in, a few of my favorite subs. We're going to test them. We're going to see what the references are. We're going to see like what's out there. And like, I'm going to essentially prove to myself, like, yeah, ours are the best. And I went into this kind of nervous about a few subwoofers. I'm like, it's going to be pretty hard to do better than this subwoofer or that subwoofer. Like I was speaking about Illusion Audio before. Those are the subwoofers that I have in my car right now, besides our new prototype, like, that I just unplugged the Illusions, but they're still in my car and they've been in my car for years and I've used them a lot and they've been my favorite for a long time. I just got the Klippel results back on the C12XL yesterday. And at best, I'm okay with saying this because of the discontinued sub. At best, it is a mediocre subwoofer.
Wow.
Some of my other previous favorite car audio subwoofers, car audio specific subwoofers, are bad. They're just bad.
Mm-hmm.
This industry is full of shit and they make design choices for the sake of either, saving money or profit or looks or marketing or, maybe even for like the protection of the subwoofer from like a warranty standpoint, but that degrades performance. I can't speak to the exact reasons why these companies are making these decisions, but I can only make assumptions. But it's genuinely mind blowing how bad a lot of these subwoofers are. Some of them are very good. Some of them I was surprised by. Again, I was going to send in maybe five of them at first, and then it kind of snowballed into a whole big thing where next thing you know, I'm borrowing subs and buying subs from all over the place. And next thing you know, we have, I think, 39 subwoofers tested right now.
Oh, wow. That's a
So
lot of
yeah,
testing. So who's doing the Klippel testing? Are you sending it out to
yes, it
like a
is not
firm
me
or?
doing the testing. It is a third party independent engineering consultant type acoustics company. They do not want to be named. At first, I did not tell them I was doing this publicly because I knew they probably wouldn't like it. And I might have, been like, hey, I just want to test these. And then I told them later on, like, hey, yeah, I want all of the test data formatted a certain way so I can easily like parse the data and like present it online to everyone. They're like, oh, whoa, we got to talk about that. If you're going to do that, we want nothing to do with this. We don't want, because they know, like they're everyone in this industry on the back end is fully aware, unless they're ignorant, but like anyone who knows anything on the back end of these things is fully aware of how full of shit this industry is. And they were like, yeah, they don't typically work in the car audio industry. They're more a commercial audio and ultra high end home audio and like theater audio. That's the type of company that's doing the testing. But they're familiar enough with the car industry to know how it gets. And they're like, yeah, we want none of the backlash that's going to come from this. So don't name us, please. And thank you.
they want to remain anonymous, right?
Yeah. And which, you know what, it's fine. At the end of the day, again, I'll be the first. I'm not doing this Klippel testing. I can't just go out and buy a Klippel machine. They are so much goddamn money. It's not even funny. So, I'm sending them off. We're doing these tests. And, the other thing too, like I want to point it out right now, some people are going to scream, oh, the test is biased. You're just trying to make your product look good and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's very important to understand what you're actually talking about. And what most people don't realize is that a Klippel measurement is pretty much 100% automated. There's nothing that the operator can do to fudge the results. Nothing. The
Yeah.
only thing you can do to fudge the results is change protection limits, which does not actually change the results. You input, the size of the driver, which again wouldn't really change the results. Or you can test one driver but slap the name of another driver on it. Like that's the only real way you could fudge results. Other than that, the whole process is fully automated. So, again, here I am. I'm sending them in, test them, send the data back. Here we go. All I'm doing is hosting it and providing people a breakdown of what the data is in my subjective opinion, knowing what the data, shows. That's it.
So you're one of the only companies willing to publish the full raw data. When is that going to be dropping? I know that you
So my
started
data
that.
is actually live as of this morning. If you go to the ResoNix website, you'll see a little tab at the top menu that says subwoofer testing with a little new icon next to it. You can click on that. That whole page will be like the home page for the testing. On there, it has all the information about what the test is, how to interpret it, blah, blah, blah. But also at the top, there will be a link to the landing page for our Gus series subwoofers, which has the whole description. It has, all of the updates for it. All like it pretty much it's just like a blog of the subwoofer series. All of the data that I have for it is hosted on it. The only data I'm missing right now is the distortion for the 12-inch because I'm getting the revision 2 of the 12-inch any day now. So I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother writing about revision 1 because I'm going to have to redo the data anyway. So I'm just waiting for that. But yeah, all of our Klippel LSI data is up there. All of our Klippel TRF distortion data is up there. All of the mechanical specs are up there, and all the information about it. Name any other car audio or even home audio driver that lists all of that. You kind of can't. It doesn't really exist.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah. A
just
lot of
wanting
people
to
don't
put it
have
out there.
the cojones to do it.
I mean, that's always been my thing since day one, you know? It's I have nothing to hide from people.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yep.
And, you know, and I understand why companies don't do it is because their stuff doesn't have the performance to look good on on these graphs. And number 2, which some people will argue doesn't matter, but those people can be fucking ignored, whatever. But number 2, the only thing that can really happen for the most part is for people to misinterpret your data and misunderstand it. Um, so I do realize I'm opening a can of worms in a negative way. Like, me posting my data can only give people fuel to ask questions or make assumptions in a negative manner for the most part. There's some people that would be like, oh, like that's good. But the vocal minority, you know, it's all going to be, oh, like, look at that little thing, which they don't even understand in the first place. And they're going to use it to, try to tarnish it. Meanwhile, their favorite subwoofer performs like absolute dog shit, and they wouldn't have even known because they don't even publish it until we came along. So, yeah.
Yeah. People
One
gonna
of the
defend
one
their
of the
purchases.
right before we hopped into this phone call, I think I mentioned to you, one of the employees, one of the well-known employees of a very big and popular car audio company, just made a post about me and my testing, complaining about it. And I commented on it. I was like, if you have complaints, bring your own data. You know,
Yep.
stop talking shit. Nut up and provide some real content, real data for us to actually work with here. Stop
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
crying about it.
Yeah, sadly, that's one of the things about the internet is everybody has a voice. They could sit
Mhm.
behind a monitor, they could sit behind a screen and talk smack. And
Which is great. Like, everyone having a voice is awesome, but at the same time, it gives everyone an equal voice, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it is kind of a bad thing when someone who has no idea what they're talking about can be equally as, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but I think you know what I'm saying.
I would say
Uh,
almost like influential. A lot of people,
yeah,
not so much
exactly.
influential, but a lot of people regurgitate misinformation, or they
Yeah,
got things that are still stuck in the head, like they're recommending stiffening capacitors because they were their big thing back in the 90s. And it's like a lot of people are still regurgitating that same stuff. Or some people are like, oh, focal tweeters are harsh. They're regurgitating. Have you ever heard of
yeah.
focal tweeter? They haven't even touched it.
Yeah,
And they're
maybe one of
saying,
their entry level ones on an untuned system.
yeah. And it's like any tweeter could be harsh if you tune it wrong. And I tell anybody, you want to hear my system? I have everything in my cars focal. You're not going to
Yeah, I
hear a
mean,
harsh tweeter.
no. And I actually loved your car when I heard it.
Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, like, a perfect example of this is from last night. There was a discussion going on Reddit, and someone was talking about, like, sound quality subwoofers that can also get loud, and I said, hey, people were talking about. I'm not going to name it, because you guys will see the data. If you want to go and find this discussion on Reddit, there will be a little spoiler there if you want to dig it up, but. They were discussing, oh, this certain subwoofer is, this is the one, this is the one. And, I have the data on it. It ain't the one. It is not the one. And I said, hey, just a heads up. I just tested that subwoofer. It's not very good. There's plenty of other better subwoofers out there, especially for the money. This one was ultra expensive and performed horrifically. Does have plenty of output, but from a sound quality perspective is an abomination. And these two guys just went ape shit. And they start, oh, this is how I know you're an idiot, or you're biased, or you're this, or you're that. I'm like, really? Here's the data.
Here's the
Here's the
proof.
distortion graph of that subwoofer. And here's the distortion graph of two other subwoofers that could compete against this. Which one are you going with? Neither of them both of them were very chatty up until that point. None of them responded after that.
Yeah, yeah. You brought
Go
receipts.
fucking figure, you know? Um, it's just crazy. There's so many people that are so overly confident in what they think they know, myself included, everyone included, you know? Everyone is overly confident in what they think they know. and nobody sits around and like asks questions anymore. And I think that's the biggest problem with the internet is everyone makes assumptions, no one asks questions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
I stopped giving
yeah,
advice because um like I said, there's a lot of people on there that will get on there and start arguing with you and they don't even know what they're talking about. And I'm like, you know what? I just give up.
yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's really funny to I use a lot of different marketing softwares for ResoNix, and one of the softwares gives me alerts whenever like keywords that I tag get mentioned. So
Mhm.
I'll tag like my brand name or like my subwoofer names, or like certain sound deadening keywords, and like it'll at the end of the day or like every so often it'll give me a list of links like, hey, these keywords were mentioned in these certain areas. Obviously, I DIY mobile audio is on there all the time, so I'll click the links it gives me and I'll see some of the most nonsense information ever. And it's like, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, you people are so confident, but
Yeah.
you are so incorrect.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yeah.
are so incorrect.
Yeah, I see it all the time, and I take it with a grain of salt, but I've been around the block. But
Yeah.
the sad truth about that is that the newbies or the people that aren't tech savvy are gonna take that as gospel.
Exactly. They're not able so this is why I'm very outgoing, I guess we could say, with my advice, and like very outgoing with like combating poor information, is because when I was new to this hobby, I fell trap to all of that stuff on the DIY mobile audio forums. I eventually started working at my first like high-end shop, and I very quickly realized, oh my God, everything I thought I knew is wrong. And I like kind of like got pissed about it at first. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, I thought all these people were supposed to be really smart. They use such big words and they speak so technically. How how can this all be wrong? It doesn't make any sense. And like my whole worldview on like car audio and everything, like it kind of exploded. And I like picked up the pieces and had to put everything back together and learn myself like hands on and from other sources. So I know firsthand when people are giving bad advice, they're not hurting anybody that actually has a clue what's going on, because those people read it and say, that's ridiculous, and move on with their life. It's like in Strictly Sound Quality, the group that I help moderate, there's 15 or 16,000 people in there. I do it for the 15 or 16,000 people that don't really know and might pick up bad information because someone speaks with conviction, but it's not true. They speak false information with conviction, and anything spoken with conviction sounds true, you
Oh
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I
And
we've all fallen victim to it, so
yeah,
that's why you see some of the hardcore. Like it's funny because getting the wrong data, getting the wrong specs and whatnot. Now I realize why a lot of us, myself included, we're constantly changing components like socks because we're reading this stuff, we're getting this information, we're getting opinions and people saying this and
yeah.
people saying that. And and let's be honest, people probably even straight up lying about the quality of something just so that
There is a lot of that
it
too.
gets, it's
There is
marketing
a lot of that.
yeah, marketing hype. And you buy this stuff and then you're like, shit, I'm going to change these tweeters out. I'm going to change. And you know what? Man, it's a lot of freaking experimenting. And that's why you kind of see, a lot of the people that know, you'll see them all kind of using the same stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
You'll see a lot of
Again, like,
people using the
again,
same subs, same tweeters, same, more or
well,
less, but
and, some people wanna call that forum boners, and you know what? I actually have a different viewpoint on that. At the end of the day, if there is a known good product and it becomes like the quote unquote "forum boner," even though it might not be the best, or even if it's like not great, even if it's like average, it's still like a known thing between like a larger, group. But at the end of the day, like, you know, it should still be put through the ringer. There's a lot of people that follow stuff though. I'm kind of like being hypocritical from what I said literally 2 seconds ago. So like I'm saying I understand the whole forum boner thing, and I don't disagree with like the idea of like known good products and like kind of sticking to a small circle, because it's not unknown territory, but at the same time, there is a lot of bullshit. And again, I monitor every website because, again, these marketing softwares give me a lot of data and a lot of information to work with and stuff to read and stuff to like tap into. And I see this stuff from a 10,000-foot view, and me again being on the inside, like having the connections that I do, having the experience that I now do, like there's so much bullshit.
That's good
It's
stuff.
so
That's
bad.
good stuff, man.
And I try my best not to do it myself. I'm definitely not innocent of it because everyone does it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'll be the first person to say like I'm only human, and everyone does it, but it's just so rampant these
yep.
days. And something I've done, like some people have like started to like again, like not even started to. People have always said, Nick, that's all you do, and I do have a counter argument for that. I had someone the other day say, anything that's not Helix, Nick says is bad. And I kind of laughed at it. I was like, that's not true at all. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about the Helix brand as a whole, most of it is not that good. It's only their DSPs and their processors, or sorry, processor DSPs. It's only their DSPs and their amplifiers that are good. There's a reason why I do not sell their speakers. There's a reason why I do not sell their subwoofers. Same thing with, you know, Blam. There's a reason I only sell their mid bass drivers. The same thing with Steg. There's a reason I only sell certain products from it. Same thing with with all of the products that I carry. I don't just load my website up with a bunch of products. I only pick and choose the ones that are, okay, like these are good. I know these are good and they have very good, use cases to them. Outside of that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't care about it, you know? But a lot of these people will dive into certain products and brands and like it's very obvious when they're doing it. It's like you're almost like you're trying to build up this brand because you're like either friends with the distributor or you are the distributor.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing wrong with being brand loyal, but yeah, you're
No, it's
right.
not.
There's just
But when a
because
product has like, a 50% failure rate out of the box and you see half the forum talking about how great they are, it's like, yeah, is it really? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think things they always the chips always fall where they fall because I know there was a lot of forum boners. There's always been forum boners in the past, and you'll see some speakers that are like the forum boner, and I won't name any brands, but I've seen it where this is the freaking the flavor of the week, flavor of the month, flavor of the year, and
Mhm.
then people start having problems with them, and you'll see it kind of go by the wayside, and it's not as popular anymore.
Yeah.
And that stuff kind of what do they say, the cream of the crop, the best float to the top or whatever.
Yeah,
And
maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe now that there's actually a lot of testing, at least for subwoofers, once I release all this data. But before, some of the worst performers are some of the highest suggested products,
yeah, that's crazy.
you
So
know?
getting back to your subwoofers now. So what are you doing? You got a 8, 10, 12, 15. What's the lineup like?
So for the Gus line of subwoofers, which is the shallow, small sealed,
Hmm.
it is a 10, 12, and 15. We're going to
Okay.
offer them in dual 4 ohm and possibly dual 2 ohm.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Are
And
you
then we're
gonna
going
be
to
doing
do, after that's released, we're going to do the heater line, which is named after my other cat, the PTR line of subwoofers, which will be an ultra shallow subwoofer, which will be similar to, like the old Illusion Audio shallow subs with the magnet on the front.
okay?
We're going to do something like that. And then we're also going to do a relatively shallow infinite baffle
That
model,
was
which
that
will
was my
be
next
the,
question. Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be the Odin line of subwoofers,
Okay.
which is named after my good friend and warehouse manager's cat, who unfortunately recently passed away in a house fire.
Oh
So
no,
yeah, we named
that
it
sucks.
after Odin, his cat.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah.
So what size is that one gonna be? Did you mention it?
We're doing a 15. So the Peter is going to be a 10 and a 12. I thought about doing a 15, but that might just be too much. And then the Odin will be a 15 and an 18 and possibly a 12.
Nice, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was going to ask about infinite baffle because everybody in the sound quality realm, that's a big thing now. So
Yeah.
what makes a good subwoofer a good subwoofer? Like people, I'm sure people out there are curious as to what to look for, and not just upselling yours, but at the same time
Yeah.
upselling yours. What makes a good subwoofer for a car subwoofer a good subwoofer? Like what all this fake, smoke and mirrors that manufacturers put out in the specs, they're fibbing on the specs. How are people? How do we even have a freaking fighting chance to figure out what's good?
Yeah. So the short answer is you don't have a fighting chance unless they publish all of the data like we are.
Hmm.
The thing that I learned going into, I had some pretty good knowledge going into it, but frankly, over the years, my knowledge on like speaker design has sort of like, not speaker design, because I've never designed a speaker, but like the idea behind what makes a speaker good has sort of faded because obviously sound deadening has taken up my brain like the past 2 or 3 years. But going back into this, I dusted off some cobwebs and I also learned a lot more. To summarize it, if I had to provide a really quick answer, what makes a good subwoofer is linearity. Linearity on motor force, linearity on suspension, linearity on inductance, linearity on QTS. Um, if you, Ed, have you ever seen a Klippel set of Klippel measurements?
Yeah, yeah.
So you know how it has like, there's like a center point and then there's usually like a line that swings from it's like an upside down U shape
Yep,
essentially.
yep.
So the more this is very vaguely summarizing here. So please, people listening, don't pick this apart. I'm just trying to make this quick and easy. Symmetrical, flat, wide, linear is important. BL, which is motor force across stroke, is by far the most important. That's why most manufacturers are referring to 70% BL is like the industry standard for deriving usable Xmax. Um, and then suspension and inductance are next, both of which are also highly important. And what I realized firsthand, like this is what they were telling me, like the engineers that I'm working with, like this is what they were telling me going into it. Like, no, like linearity is like super important, like for us to, all these discussions we had. I'm like, okay, like cool, like I guess, I've never really had a subwoofer that was like this, and then a similar subwoofer that just didn't have as good of linearity across those different parameters. And I got to experience it firsthand, with a few different subwoofers, again, that I have firsthand experience with. I'll talk about these ones since, again, they're discontinued. The Illusion Audio C12XL, which is one of my favorite subwoofers to date. And then yesterday I got the data back on it and it's not that good. It's not linear. It is not symmetrical. And one of the things, I still have the 212s in the rear of my car playing from 40 hertz and down. And one of the weird things that I always experienced with those is like, yeah, they will play low. Like my microphone picks up that they're playing down to, you know, 11 hertz, 10 hertz, something like that, flat. And, but the thing was like, you hear these people talking about, oh, like, yeah, you don't feel it though. And it's like, yeah, but it's there. Like, I don't, it's like a tricky thing of like, are you feeling it because you have too much of it? And I learned firsthand, it's because they are nonlinear and they are compressing at high excursion. And yeah, they are creating the sound, but once they start, really getting some long throw under them, they are not traveling in a linear fashion, which is really impacting what you actually experience. And yeah, I don't know if that answered that question.
No, no, no. That was perfect. That was a good answer.
Yeah,
So
and
when
those large signal parameters also impact distortion. Asymmetry and nonlinearity on all of these has different effects on harmonic distortion, intermodulated distortion, things like that. And our write up on the subwoofer testing homepage has all of that information. There's also a cheat sheet that Klippel has that tells you what all of these nonlinearities and asymmetries cause as far as distortion goes.
So what do you think of infinite baffle versus sealed in a car? What do you what's your take on that? Like,
So it's really funny you ask that. I had my own opinion on this, which was it doesn't matter as long as the QTC of the system is the same, because it's kind of at the end of the day, infinite baffle is behaving as a sealed enclosure, right? It's just an infinite size sealed enclosure.
mhm.
Um, and what's really happening is the engineer that's working on my subs is probably going to listen to this and he's gonna be like, Nick, you're butchering this. What are you doing? You should have him on here. That would be exciting.
That'd be great.
And I'm sure he'd be willing to. And I'm sure most people would actually be familiar with him. But anyways, um, the whole thing is at the end of the day, when you're designing a driver, you have your motor force, you have your equivalent air suspension, you have all these different parameters, and at the end of the day, the QTC of the final system, the driver plus the enclosure, is what you're gonna hear. That's it. So at the end of the day, it really just comes down to what the driver is doing in that specific enclosure. So if we're able to achieve the same thing in a different enclosure, it's relatively the same. That was my opinion before going into this. After this, coming out of it and asking these guys these questions, to summarize it, I am still under the same impression. This whole idea that infinite baffle is this quote unquote special thing is, I'm generalizing here, but I'm trying to keep it short. It's bullshit. It really is. What really makes infinite baffle special is the fact that there are good subwoofers designed for infinite baffle. That's it. Nothing more. I realized that the second I was testing audio mobile subwoofers and our prototype. And I was like, oh, this like, this low end that you like feel like it pressurizes your cabin, as people say. It's not coming from infinite baffle specifically. It's not coming from, yeah, more cone area does it, but like the cone area itself is just creating more output, but like it's not coming from that. It's coming from linearity. These infinite baffle subwoofers that are very, very popular with infinite baffle that we tested are amazing subwoofers. They're incredible. They have amazing linearity. I just sent the Klippel report for one of them to Aaron Hardison last night. We were talking on the phone for like an hour and a half about this testing that we did. And, we were just catching up. We're old friends. And, we got into the test and, we started nerding out on stuff. I started sending him some of the PDFs that I had. And I sent him one of the acoustic elegance subs. And he looked at it and he went, holy shit, that's a good subwoofer. And I was like, yeah, so it's like, go figure, no wonder that it sounds like that. It's not infinite baffle doing it. It is a really good driver in its appropriate application doing it. If you do, a really well-designed subwoofer that's designed for small sealed, you will experience the exact same thing. The thing is, there are no subwoofers that are designed for small sealed that do the exact same thing. The only ones that were doing it were the audio mobile encores, and they're no longer made. I don't think they will be made ever again. I'm assuming. I don't know if that's true or not. And now our subwoofers do the same thing. We have excellent linearity across stroke. And I have that. You heard my car at the get together recently, right?
Actually, I didn't. I was giving demos of my car, and I was like,
oh my God, I wish
man,
you did.
I know. I wish I did too. I wanted to
'Cause
hop
then you
in,
would've.
but I think you had to go to a wedding or something like that.
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
I went to 2 weddings that weekend. It was
Oh, wow.
crazy. Um, yeah, and I was only there for like 3 hours. I ended up being like a little late. My girlfriend was pissed at me.
Yep.
Whatever.
I did hear good
Uh,
stuff. Mike was raving about it, and everybody that heard it said really good stuff
yeah.
about it.
I mean, you can ask Ryan about it. You can ask Chris Pierce about it. You can ask, Braden, has a really long and in-depth review about it on the forums. All of them said the same thing. are you sure you don't have your rear subs hooked up right now? And the thing was, like, that 112 was doing better low end extension than my two C12 XLs in the rear were doing. Now, sure, there's a little bit more cabin gain in like the front passenger footwell than there is from the trunk, but my car and my trunk are very small and the distances are very similar. So it's really not that much of a difference. Like, all these people get in, they're like, there's no fucking way. It's just that single 12. I even had to show somebody that, that my 12s in the rear were unplugged. They weren't even plugged in. Uh,
That's awesome.
and yeah,
What were you
like,
hitting it? How many watts?
like 600.
600? Okay.
Yeah, about that. And I did it with half of a cubic foot enclosure.
Yeah, I
You
saw
know,
the box. It was wicked small. So
yeah.
is this I know you're in prototype phase, but is that one that you brought to the event? Is that going to be the final
Mm-mm.
iteration, or are you still testing?
That was revision 1.
Uh-huh.
We have a few things to fix on it. So the way like proper subwoofer design goes is you do like engineering drawings, like you simulate it. Like there's different softwares where you can simulate different motor topologies and like motor designs and like suspensions and things like that. And you can simulate how the motor is going to behave, how the suspension is going to behave, and you can kind of piece that all together in these various softwares. So you simulate it and then you build your prototype. Most of the time, or sometimes, I can't speak for most of the time. I've never designed more or helped with designing more than one subwoofer before. Uh, but like apparently, most of the time, the simulations are very close to the real world that you build of it. But it's usually not 100% spot on. So you simulate it, you build a prototype, you see the little differences that are that need to be fixed, and then you do a revision, and you just keep going from there. So we're doing revision 2 right now, and there will be slight improvements. Um, Notably, we had a slight asymmetry with, I think it was the suspension, and with the BL. I'm talking like very slight, but again, if it's as simple as just shifting the, you know, moving assembly by 2 millimeters, then okay, do it. Great, you get more Xmax, you get better linearity, and you get better symmetry. Great. We just reduced distortion a little bit further. And all it takes is just slight changes. So to like do that and see how easy it was for us to do that, again, seeing the results on all these different subwoofers and being like, how the hell do you guys have, asymmetries of up to 10 millimeters and, non-linearities that make these BL curves look like, mountains? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute to me. I don't know, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
because a lot of companies are, they'll make a speaker and then they'll use the same motor on different size speakers, which is a common
maybe.
thing.
I don't know. I don't know if people will do that. I really can't speak to that. I obviously I don't know what's going on internally with most of these subs. We're not disassembling them. We're just measuring them, and that's it. You know. Um, but yeah, it's a very sad state out there in the car audio industry right now, as far as performance goes and what is actually being shown. But yeah, I mean, we had the one prototype in the front passenger footwell, half a cubic foot, and it did amazing. And it blew my mind. At first, when I started listening to our prototype, I was like, I do I like this? I was like, something is different about this. I don't I don't know if I like this. And I was like, all right, let me like put it through its paces really quick. And I realized after a few minutes, I was like, oh, there's just a lot more content. I'm like, it's weird. It's measuring the same, but there is a lot more content. And that is where I proved to myself that I was wrong about something previously. I used to argue, I was like, it's measuring down there. Like it must be playing it again. Yeah, sure, it kind of is, but it's not doing it in a linear fashion, which will again reduce performance in a myriad of ways. Um, it can add distortion, it can cause compression, it can, you'll get those frequencies kind of, but like not actually fully produced, but the microphone will pick it up as pressure down there, but you won't actually get that pressure. So, again, to go back, I know I just rambled for a while and completely went on a tangent and changed subjects, but to go back to your topic of like, is infinite baffle different than small sealed? Yeah, the enclosure is different, but as long as all other things are equal, which isn't really possible, but let's just assume they are, then yeah, they could sound and perform exactly the same. The only thing that's different about infinite baffle is you will have a much higher or much higher like efficiency as far as power goes. For the small seals, you'll need much more power to get the same output with the same low end extension in that small enclosure. That's it. If you can apply all that power, there's no difference.
Yeah, I've heard good infinite baffle, and I've heard good sealed subwoofers. So,
Yeah.
It's pick your poison, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, and again, to summarize it really quick, it's just as simple as good subwoofer versus bad subwoofer. This whole obsession of infinite baffle, it's really just coming down to, Ed, do me a favor, name 3 subwoofers for me that are common to use in infinite baffle.
Let's see, acoustic elegance. Really can't think of any others.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah.
Guess what? Acoustic elegance subs are fucking amazing.
Yep.
That's the answer, that really, really genuinely is the answer. I'm trying to think of like,
And they have a wait list to boot.
yeah. Yeah. They're very good. They're very, very good subwoofers. And that's what people are hearing. Again, if we had an equal subwoofer, but designed for small sealed, you would hear the same thing. That's it. It's really what it comes down to.
So when can people get their hands on the Gus? What is it? The Gus, the Peter, and
yeah,
the
Gus is the first one that we're doing. I'm not going to release all of them at the same time. I realize that would be absolutely insane because it would be the most ridiculous financial burden I could possibly imagine for myself. But we're doing the Gus first because that is the most important one, I think. Small sealed, shallow, like duh. High excursion, low distortion. Everyone's going to love that. That could be used in so many applications. So that one, if all goes well, we should have them available, ready to ship to customers by late April or early May. But again, that's if everything goes well.
Okay.
Who knows? Something might happen where, in production, we find something that needs to be fixed, or I'm not happy with a finish on the cone, or, we're not happy with, who knows? There's, or a supplier for like, the rubber ring, the rubber trim ring didn't come through and was late on delivering, those. Like, who the hell knows? There's a million things that could go wrong. Maybe the boat that's bringing it over from overseas got nuked. Who the hell knows? There's a million things that could.
Yeah, if you're getting it from Venezuela or something, and you get accused of importing drugs or something, there goes a pallet. There goes a pallet of the Gus. What is it? What's the full name of the first one? It's the Gus.
Gus. Yeah,
it's just
the Gus.
Oh, okay.
It is named after my cat, first and foremost. But I do have an appropriate other name for it. It stands for geometrically uncompromised subwoofer, and the reason for that is
awesome.
Geometrically, meaning it's small, it's shallow, but at the same time, the geometric, like the design of the motor, the suspension, like everything about this subwoofer is uncompromised. We are doing something that is shallow, but at the same time, we're not compromising the motor geometry, the suspension, the inductance, the QTS. All of it is industry leading, So yeah, that's what prompted the name for the Gus, besides my cat.
That's awesome, man. So let everybody know where they can find you. Drop some websites, I'll post some links up once we finish with this, but if you can let the audience know where they can find you.
ResoNixSoundSolutions.com. You can go on the website. You can see all of the information on there. Like I said, if you go to the website, you'll see the subwoofer testing in the main menu. If you go there, you'll see a link towards the top of the home article for that testing that will bring you to the Gus series landing page. And that landing page has all of the info, everything from all of the descriptions, the expected pricing, the TS parameters, the distortion graphs, the LSI graphs, the mechanical drawings and specs, the renderings, some photos of like the prototypes, all sorts of stuff we have. You can also see us on Facebook, which is where we post a lot of updates, Instagram too. We're all over the place.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. So yeah,
Yeah.
we got a lot of content, Nick. I think we're gonna wrap it up. Unless you got
Oh man,
anything
I
else you
thought we
want
were
to
just
add.
starting.
Now we got almost an hour and a half of some good info here.
Yeah. Wow. It's been an hour and a half already.
An hour. Yeah. Well, I got an hour and 20 of content, and then we had to set this thing up, this whole baby up with
Cool.
Zoom and Google and whatever else we were trying to get a clear signal. But
as I tell
we
everyone, I'm
it.
always okay with going on if you want more, or we can wrap it up if you want. I'm open to either.
No, if you got anything else to add, I don't even know.
It's not me. It's not my podcast. It's you.
Yeah, I mean, anything you want to bring up, anything you got left, or anything you think you missed.
Let's go back to some of the testing.
Sure.
I do want to put this out there before it's actually released. The homepage for the testing is released, but none of the data is released yet. The reason why I wanted to do that is purely so people can start reading about what the test is, why it was done, how it was done, what the data is, how to interpret the data. All of this context is extremely, extremely important. The last thing I want is for like all of this data to just be dropped and people to like, oh yeah, all right, cool. And they don't even understand it anyway. Like, let's be real. How many people know how to understand a full suite of Klippel measurements? They don't. Like 99% of people, even the extreme hobbyists, don't. This article explains all of that info. So even if you don't want to read all this, you just want to see the results, I promise you, if you read this article, that homepage, you are going to learn a lot of information about how speakers work and how all these super advanced, high level measurement systems are working and how they're measuring these different parameters. And at the same time, I also want to get out there, please, when these results drop, again, it's only relative to the context of this test. It's not the end all be all. We did our best with what we had. You listeners might hear this and then see our testing and be like, oh, but they didn't do this, or they, that's not what I would have done. Great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
that comes with the territory.
For you, you didn't pay for this test. There's labor costs that are associated with this test, and we had to make a judgment call of like what we did and like what was being paid for, and then not only that, not just like the labor costs for the test, but also how much data I personally would have to parse through and then write about. Ed, I have over 50,000 words being written for these articles combined.
Wow. That's crazy.
It is insane. It is the largest undertaking of content creation that I have ever done by far. It's been so stressful. It's mentally taken me to like high highs and low lows. It's been a lot of work.
No pun intended.
So, yeah. And I'll even explain like what I'm anticipating. One of the judgment calls that we made for this test was, we did 2 levels of distortion measurements. Most people will see a distortion measurement and it's usually at 2.83 volts at 1 watt, 1 meter, or like 1 watt, 1 meter, or 2.83 volts at 1 meter, right? Mm-hmm. That's like the industry standard. Or, with subwoofers, you don't do 1 meter, you do it near field because room modes. But anyways, what we did was we did 2 measurements. One was at 1 volt near field, and another one was at just below, I think it was just below, just below the 70% the measured 70% BL Xmax limit that we found on that sample. So we applied enough voltage to get this thing going just to where its 70% BL was being approached. And we did a distortion measurement at that level. And here's the thing. Obviously, we have, let's say 40 different subwoofers. These subwoofers range from super low power handling with super low excursion all the way up to super high power handling with, gobs of excursion, right? And I already see it where people are going to be like, yeah, you tested this subwoofer with 40 volts and you tested this one with 10. Like, how is that comparable? The thing is, I did want to do 4 levels of voltage testing. I wanted to do 1 volt. I wanted to do 8 volt. I wanted to do just below 70% excursion. And I wanted to do a voltage level that would bring it to manufacturer stated Xmax. We started looking at the labor. We started looking at what I was going to do for the write-ups, and it was going to make my life a living hell and make things extremely expensive. It already was extremely expensive, but I'm talking way more expensive. So what they proposed, what the engineers proposed was like, look, let's just do this. Let's measure it at 1 volt. And let's also measure it at, just at its 70% BL excursion. And from there, at the end of the day, people are not going to pick a super high excursion, super high power handling subwoofer if they don't need much output. And and I was like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, who's going to go for, like a JL Audio W7 if they only need 110 dB of output? Like, at the low end, that's like not going to happen. So it's like, oh yeah. So it's like more like, okay, we have low level baseline and then use case distortion. And then from there, we are able to not perfectly, but at least closely extrapolate, how much, how well, these different drivers are weighted from, the amount of distortion they have relative to the amount of excursion they have. And again, the article that I have currently up explains all of this. We do have a performance score sheet that we will be doing for every subwoofer. This performance score sheet is not end all be all. It is my subjective interpretation of the objective data. And that weighted distortion to Xmax is part of it to give the subwoofers that have more excursion higher reward, and the drivers that have super low excursion, a little bit of a penalty. But anyways, just look at this as data. It is your responsibility to interpret that data in a way that is, usable, in a way that is fair. I do my best at explaining things, but at the end of the day, again, I did my best to be neutral about everything. But some people are going to have different opinions. Other manufacturers whose products are included in this are definitely going to have certain opinions about this. They're just not going to be happy because their products didn't do well. Like I said, I already had an employee, a tech support employee of one company, 15 minutes before we started this podcast, make a Facebook status about, let me, you know what? I'm just going to read it right now. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's going to be just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg once all this data gets out there.
He said, these new car audio kids that bash all their customers, fellow installers, and manufacturers because they're so smart and ask us to respect their data and upcoming products so we'll buy them. Bless your chart, Hild. Haha. And then apparently he made an edit here because this wasn't edited before. Golden rule, respect your audience and they will respect you. Degrade your audience, and even if you're right, they'll denounce you. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not denouncing any audience here. I'm just, putting up data of products. And that's it.
Yeah, so you're going to fluff some feathers and disappoint some people because they're going to, they're loyal and they think they're, some people don't know what they don't know, so they're going to think that, hey, my subwoofer sounds good to my ears, but on paper, it's not show. You know what I mean? But
yeah, and I actually, you know what? That's actually great that you bring that up, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all, man.
Because I really wanted to bring that up, and I totally forgot. There is a section of this article that discusses exactly that. I already know I'm going to have a ton of people whose favorite subwoofer gets absolutely annihilated in this, you know,
I can't
because,
wait to read
because
this.
again, I'm familiar with who is recommending what and how
Yeah, yeah.
passionate they are and, how these subwoofers performed. They're going to be they're going to say, they're going to come out and say, I don't care what the data says. I use my ears. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But at the end of the day, just because you have a preference towards high distortion, nonlinear subwoofers doesn't make them accurate. It just makes it that you like it or are not even like it, used to it. Like I said before, when I first got my subwoofer, my prototype installed, I wasn't sure if I even liked it at first because I wasn't used to all of that extra linearity that wasn't there on the C12XLs. The C12XLs had pretty bad asymmetry and pretty bad linearity. Um, and I wasn't used to this truly accurate end result. Yeah, they had low distortion and they sounded tight and they sounded clean, but they didn't have true linearity. And if you presented this to me, oh yeah, that C12XL actually does really bad. I probably would have been like one of those people like, ugh, I don't know, man. I really don't know. But I'm experiencing it firsthand. I changed my own opinions on certain things throughout this entire test, and I discussed that as well in this article. But yeah, there's going to be plenty of people that denounce this testing either because they're loyal to a brand or they're an affiliate of the brand or they're an employer of the brand or they own the brand or they're just a fucking idiot fanboy. There's going to be all sorts of people who denounce it for various reasons. At the end of the day, again, it's a third party that tested this stuff. The Klippel machine, the hardware and the software is fully automated. There's nothing we can do to really fudge this. And if you disagree, you know, go do your own testing or keep living in ignorance. I don't care. It doesn't change anything. And one thing to also keep in mind too, again, a lot of these brands are probably going to try to denounce it. I can name two of them right now that I know for a fact are going to go ape shit because their owners are very vocal people and they are not going to like these results. Anyways,
Oh,
at the end of the day,
people already there's already a little bit of kerfuffle over on the forums, on the Dyma forum, and I
yeah,
started to
maybe.
read.
Maybe I don't know, but I know specifically two company owners are going to go ape shit. And I'll tell you after we get off the recording. I'll tell you exactly who they are, and we're gonna have a little inside joke later.
Sure, sure.
Anyways, at the end of the day, this is something to also keep in mind. We talked about before. A lot of these manufacturers don't release these specs. Here is the thing. I guarantee you, any halfway respectable manufacturer has these specs for their subwoofers. They just do not make them public for one reason or the other. Reason number one is that the product is dog shit and they don't want to put that out there publicly, right? Reason number two is what I'm experiencing. People misinterpreting data that they don't even understand in the first place and just running wild with it. And they say, oh, like, your sub has, 4% distortion with, 26 volts applied to it. That's a lot. It's like, yeah, that's a lot. You should see these other subwoofers that have 25% distortion with 20 volts applied to them. So it's kind of, they have nothing to compare to. You give them ammo, they only shoot at you, you know? But again, I'm rambling and I'm going all over the place. But again, most important thing to keep in mind here, all of these brands have this data.
Yeah.
They are going to come out and they are going to try to defend things. Just ask them, okay, release your data. Provide me with something that shows that what I have here is not true. I guarantee you most of them will not. If not, all of them will not. And you know what? I have it on the page too. Like if there's any company owners that see this and like disagree with our testing, like they know for a fact something is up. Maybe this very specific sample is like not measuring correctly. Maybe it's a bad sample, which we highly doubt because that doesn't really happen. But you know what? You have some sort of disagreement with the results. Email me. I will purchase a brand new one. I will send it in again and we'll test it again. And we will put the second test up.
Oh, I
You know?
guarantee you people are gonna that was one of the things that was on the back of my mind that they're gonna be like, oh, how many samples did you test of, let's say, I don't know, I'll pick a woofer, like you said, they're not in business anymore, but a Audio Mobile, Evo subwoofer, 10-inch, whatever, and
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, oh, you don't have enough samples. There's gonna be people, everybody's gonna be in the grandstands with their own opinion, and they're gonna be like, look, this is the subwoofer. You should be able to pick any manufacturer subwoofer out of that lineup if they have good quality control.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really good point. So here's something to keep in mind too. Subwoofers are the easiest driver to design and to manufacture. They are, with them being so large and them producing, low frequencies that are not as sensitive to small manufacturing mistakes. It's very difficult to have a subwoofer, like one sample, that's going to measure totally different from another sample. The only way that happens is if you have garbage quality control. Garbage.
Yep.
Like absolute dog shit manufacturing, dog shit quality control. It just does not happen. So if you see a manufacturer put that out there as an excuse, that is another red flag because it's not how it works. It's not how it works. You could have convinced me that maybe before I went into this, but again, I learned a lot going into this. I had so many questions, and these guys again like explained to me how all of this works. And again, to summarize that part, like there are no real major tolerances from sample to sample. There'll be small ones, obviously, but like nothing crazy. And if there are, red flag on its own, major red flag. Um, so I don't know, you know, and that's something maybe again if I do want to talk about and like announce and be proud of who I worked with on this subwoofer again because I do want to give credit to my friend who did the design on it. I do want to give credit to these guys. I'm super proud that I'm working with them. It's not that I'm keeping it hidden. I'm keeping it hidden because they don't want to be involved in the drama of this. Not that they're tied to the testing really, but they did do the designs of my subwoofer. Um, and maybe if you get one of those guys on, they can tell you firsthand about manufacturing tolerances and what you experience across Klippel testing 5 different samples of the same model. It, you know, you can get it firsthand from someone like that. I'm sure they would love to talk about that.
Yeah. See if we can get that person on. He could come on anonymous. I'll set him
Ah,
up.
he would probably love to.
Yeah, that'd be great because
So,
I got a lot of questions. I'd love to know. I'm sure the
yeah,
audience out there would love to hear what they have to say too.
yeah, yeah. I'll ask them. I'll ask them if they want to. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, there's so many aspects to this whole thing. Again, the testing is the testing, the data is the data. It is the viewer's responsibility to educate themselves on it. I provide all the resources to do so. Um, any company that wants to disagree with it, I invite you to present me something different and let's work together to come up with a solution to get proper data. If you think ours isn't proper on your product. And yeah, good luck. See you in the battlefield.
Good stuff, Nick. I think I think we should wrap it up and
Yeah.
call it a day, put a bow on this. So
All
Nick,
right.
thank you for coming on. Everybody say thank you to Nick.
Woo, thanks.
Crowd's going crazy. All right, Nick, hang on. I'm going to wrap this up, all right? Hang on one
All right.
second.